नाही समजतच नाही कसं करावं ते. चालू झालं पण मला ते विंडो कॅप्चरच करता येऊन चाललंय, त्याच्यामुळे प्रॉब्लेम आलेला आहे.
He holds a diploma in cyber law from Asian School of Cyber Law and a diploma in media laws from the Nalsar University, Hyderabad. He stood first at the media law diploma course at Nalsar, Hyderabad in the year 2011-12. He practices law at the Aurangabad bench of Bombay High Court since 2004. From 8/1/2015 to 8/10/2017, he was appointed as Assistant Government Pleader and Additional Public Prosecutor at High Court Bombay Bench at Aurangabad. More than 25 judgments in cases argued and conducted by him have been made reportable in law journals and law reports. He was nominated by the High Court of Bombay Aurangabad Bench to act as a team member legal to assist the Central Vigilance Commission on Public Distribution System. The commission headed by the Honorable bench, Aurangabad, in SMPIL pertaining to the condition of road leading to Ajanta caves and the SMPIL pertaining to death of a leopard caused at Thergaon, Taluka, Paithan district, Aurangabad. He has authored 3 research papers that are published in respective compendiums of workshops and seminars. Thank you.
Thank you, Dhanashree. Now, I humbly request Dharurkar sir to enlighten us. Dharurkar sir, please.
Thank you, Dhanashri, for that introduction. Thank you, Vaishali madam, Meetal madam, for inviting me. My association with VM Patil Law College dates back to almost 10 years, and it's like homecoming to participate in any activity conducted by the VM Patil Law College. It is indeed a matter of emotions, a fountain of emotions. Though grave and fierce in appearance, Ambedkar was a fountain of emotions. What does that mean? What does that suggest? I recollect the words in Marathi. माणसांच्या मध्यरात्री हिंडणारा सूर्य मी, माणसांच्या मध्यरात्री हिंडणारा सूर्य मी, माझी या साठीन माझा पेटण्याचा सोहळा. If one is to see the whole biography, the life and times of Dr. Ambedkar, then one will be moved with the courage, the patience, the resilience, or at the same time, the whole kind of earnestness that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar had towards his brothers, towards the citizens of this country who were deprived of their basic fundamental rights. So while Dr. Ambedkar was representing a certain section of society, one cannot forget that in fact he was representing the cause of humans. He was talking of basic human rights. One cannot restrict Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar to a certain section of society. If one is to understand Dr. Babasaheb, we'll have to check in short what were his trials, what were his tribulations, what were his sufferings, and how he had overcome them with a smile on his face, with a determination, with endurance, with this indomitable spirit that he had and he carried. One will have to verify as to what made Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar say in the year 1935 that though I was born a Hindu, but I will not die as a Hindu. What was this whole journey of this genius from a person who was born in a Hindu family, but says, having studied the law, having studied various religions, having studied the anthropology, having studied the various facets of religion, when he comes to a conclusion that he does not wish to die as a Hindu. What was this whole journey about? What was the life of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar? The irony of today's situation is that the other day, just because of curiosity, because I had watched the movie on Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's life, where Southern film star Mammootty had played Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar almost 20 years ago. In 2002 or 2001, the movie had released. And then there were no Netflix, no YouTube, nothing. There were no OTT platforms. Thereafter, I have now checked on YouTube whether the movie is available. Yes, the movie is available on few YouTube channels, copyright free, but that copy is highly blurred. It doesn't have that resolution wherein we can clearly watch the movie. Then I checked on the site of Government of India, the movie is not available. I checked on almost all OTT platforms, the movie is not available. Now, this is a matter of great concern as an individual to me that the movie that we have, from which we can draw inspiration about Dr. Ambedkar, his thoughts, his influence on the Indian Constitution, today in HD resolution, we do not get to find that movie on the internet at all. Of course, this is just 4 months ago that I had this occasion to just out of curiosity surf the internet, and this was the position. If during the last 4 months, if there has been a change, I would be happy if somebody shares with me the link Of course, I've also tried to look on Telegram, because on Telegram, everyone knows from amongst the student community that what you don't find on Google, you may find on Telegram. It's not available on Telegram also. Why am I talking about the movie? Movie is a ready, reliable source of inspiration, wherein you need not go through books for hours together. Within 2 hours, 30 minutes, you can just have a glimpse of the great man Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was. What were the incidences in his life that made Dr. Ambedkar what Dr. Ambedkar was? So, if we are to just trace back his life and his times, we cannot forget the incidences of his childhood. A great orator in Maharashtra, who is no more, the former Vice Chancellor of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, Dr. Shivajirao Bhosle, often cited an incident in the life of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar while Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was a school-going child and was a student in a school. The other students, his classmates, treated Bhimrao, that was his name, with discrimination. Their approach towards Bhimrao was that of distancing themselves from Bhimrao. Once, the teacher who was teaching a mathematical equation on the blackboard asked the students that who amongst you can come here and solve this problem for us? And it was Bhima who raised his hand. And the teacher asked Bhima that please come to the blackboard, have this piece of chalk and show us how do you solve this problem. The rest of the class then shouted and dissented, saying that, sir, जर Bhima फळ्याजवळ आला, that is, if Bhima comes to the blackboard and if he holds the chalk, the piece of Bhima will touch the piece of chalk. The chalk piece will touch the blackboard. The blackboard is placed on a table, and on that table, our food tiffins or meal tiffins are placed. And with this, the tiffins, the meal in that tiffin will get affected, and we won't be in a position to consume our meal. So this was the attitude of the other student, and that too children. So deep were these feelings of hatred, animosity, or separation in the minds of even children that the lines were sharp. The division was very deep. So with this background, Dr. Shivajirao Bhosle says in Marathi, ज्यांना गणित सोडवता येत होतं ते फळ्यापर्यंत जाऊ शकत नव्हते आणि जे कुठेही जाऊ शकत होते त्यांना गणित मात्र काही सोडवता येत नव्हतं. That was the irony of those times. Not only that, if Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar had to have a haircut, he couldn't visit the salon. He used to request his elder sister to give him a haircut. Why? The salon manager or the owner won't permit the people of a certain category to come and enjoy the services there, because he would feel that because of he providing service to a certain section of society, his saloon will be a matter of desertion for the other customers from the higher community. While Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, along with his sisters and brothers, while he was a child, were walking to a certain distance and they saw a bullock cart owner riding the bullock cart, they stopped him and they wanted to hire his services so that he could drop them. And they were ready to pay the fare. The bullock cart owner agreed. The fare was also finalized. And Dr. Ambedkar, this also is an incident of his childhood, got into the bullock cart. They traveled to a certain distance. And the conversation that was being exchanged between Dr. Ambedkar and his brother and sisters, this bullock cart rider could gather that these children who have alighted his bullock cart belong to a certain community. And he got disturbed. He stopped the cart where it was, asked these children that to what community do you belong? And the children, with all innocence, responded and told him the community to which they belonged. And the cart rider said, the moment he heard that please get down off my bullock cart. And when Bhima tried to know the reason why the bullock cart owner was being so rude, so curt, he learned that the bullock cart owner said that if the other people of the society come to know that you have been a passenger in my bullock cart, they will never come and sit into my bullock cart because my bullock cart has now become ill affected because of your presence in the bullock cart. Those were times when even the shadow of a person who belonged to a certain community, if it falls on you, that used to be considered as a taboo. And in those hard times, having come across all such incidences, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar continued with his studies. But the way you get to see bad people around, there were also some instances where Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar got to know some very affectionate people from the society. There was a school teacher. Now, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's native village was a village from Ratnagiri district, and therefore his surname was Ambavadekar. But his teacher, who used to teach Ambedkar in his school, who was from the higher community, and that is what the source of literature that you get to read even across the internet says, he offered his surname to Ambedkar. Otherwise, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's surname was something else. His name was Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar. Ramji Ambedkar, that is Babasaheb's father, was a Subedar in the British Army. Post his retirement, lived a very humble and a modest life. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, when he became Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, that is the first law minister of independent India, there were two sides of his personality, two facets of his personality. If one used to visit his kitchen, his study room, the atmosphere over there was very modest and simple. And if one had an occasion to visit the living room where Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar stayed in his residence, it was very opulent, very lavish and posh. So somebody out of curiosity asked Ambedkar that I don't really get this distinct facets of your life, that your kitchen, your study room is very simple and modest, but your living room is full of lavishness and opulence. Why? And Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's response was that my study room and my kitchen is my personal place, but my living room is a place where the brothers from my community, they come and visit me. So they should learn that it is based on the power of knowledge. This yearning, this thirst of knowledge, that you can go high and attain a position that I have attained. So those were all tough times. When Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar as a school student used to study, he used to go and sit in a garden and he used to read books. There is a Shiv Charitrakar in Maharashtra. Shiva Charitrakar means a person who has authored the collected works describing the life of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. It is available in volumes. And his name is Krishnaji Arjun Keuskar. He is known as Shiva Charitrakar. So Krishnaji Arjun Keuskar used to be a person who also was a regular visitor at the very garden where Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar as a school child used to go and used to read books. Maybe his study books, maybe extracurricular books that he was, because he was right from his childhood interested in learning. So Krishnaji Arjun Keuskar had developed a good rapport because he was anxious to know that who's this small boy who with all earnestness is coming regularly to the park and is reading books in the park. So they had developed a certain rapport. It so happened that the day when Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar passed his 10th class examination, whatever it was then known as, now we call it SSC. At that time, there was a felicitation ceremony organized by the school, and the guest who was invited there to offer greetings and good wishes and blessings to the students who have successfully passed their examinations. One such guest was Krishnaji Arjun Keluskar. And Krishnaji Arjun Keluskar gifted Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar the biography of Lord Gautam Buddha, which was authored by Krishnaji Arjun Keluskar. So as I said, that there were certain bitter experiences and there were certain sweet experiences. But of course, if one is to measure the number of experiences with a scale, the bitter experiences were innumerable. We all know the role played by Rajarshi Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj. We all know the role played by the Maharaja of Baroda Sansthan, Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad. Because after completing his education, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar had got a job at the Baroda Sansthan, and there he felt that he would wish to pursue his further studies. And then how could he gather the resources? How could he gather the money? Because ultimately going to a foreign country, staying there, studying there, some fees was required to be paid. The subscription was required to be, or enrollment was required to be paid. So from where all of this money could come? And it was Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad who extended a helping hand to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. And then he could visit the country where he had been to, England, Colombia, and he could study. Those were times when the librarian, where Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar used to consistently sit for hours together, just out of curiosity, used to watch this boy, that the boy was not even going for a break, for a lunch break. And when he asked that, why for? Then he said that, sir, I do not have that much money, I cannot afford. So I do have a sandwich with me, and I eat that and I continue. So when that librarian came to know the whole financial position of this boy, he was really impressed with the kind of perseverance that was exhibited by this young boy towards studies. So if we are to just chart the whole journey of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's life, looking at these incidences, we'll come to know that why Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar in 1935 and thereafter in the Yevla Dharma Parishad had come out with this announcement that he doesn't want to die as a Hindu, because his views were that Hinduism is such a religion that it has such different floors or stories the way a building has, but there are no staircases. So if you are born on a certain story or a floor, you cannot go upwards. There are no staircases. This is how he described Hinduism. Why was he impressed with Gautam Buddha? For that reason, as we have seen, it was the influence of the biography of Lord Gautam Buddha that was gifted to him by Krishnaji Arjun Keluskar. But not only that, if one is to read why Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar found Gautam Buddha close to him, is because he felt that the most scientific way of looking towards personal religion or spiritualism is taught by Lord Gautam Buddha. And the reasons that is Dr. Babasaheb offered for preferring Buddhism as a religion is that he said that if one is to peruse and study the other religions of the world, you will get to see that, for example, Bhagavan Shri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Ashritaha, Pranapana Samayukta, and so on and so forth. So it is me who lives amongst all the living and non-living beings. It is me who resides inside the people. That is, Lord Sri Krishna says that I am everywhere. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's objection to the other religious faiths was this, that Lord Gautam Buddha never proclaimed himself to be God. His sandesh, his message was Atta Deepa Bhava, that be your own light. And therefore, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar had his views about Buddhism. He used to say that he has three gurus in life. One is Sant Kabir, second is Gautam Buddha, and Mahatma Phule. So this background made Ambedkar what he was. Now my advice, whenever I have an occasion to study law, to all the students, has consistently been to study two speeches of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. When I say two speeches, of course I do not mean that these are the only two speeches which are to be studied. The whole difficulty with our generation, and for that matter with every generation, is this, that when we talk of Swami Vivekananda, we know that at the Chicago Dharma Parishad in the year 1893 or 92, he said that my dear brothers and sisters from America, and there was a big round of applause. If we talk of Lokmanya Tilak, we know that the class teacher asked Lokmanya or Bal Gangadhar Tilak that Bal, या शेंगांची टरफलं तो उचल. And he said, मी शेंगा खाल्ल्या नाहीत आणि मी टरफलं उचलणार नाही. If we talk of Mahatma Gandhi, all that we know normally, ordinarily, is that Mahatma Gandhi said Chale Jao in 1942, and it was because of that Chale Jao moment, that movement, that the whole British era had come to an end. The difficulty that I am citing to all of the participants who have joined today on this occasion is that with these great men, it is only these few instances that we know. Do we know that apart from uttering those magical words of my dear brothers and sisters from America, Swami Vivekananda had delivered hundreds of lectures, not only about Hinduism, but also about Islam, also about Buddhism, also about Christianity. And all of these talks were delivered in United States of America during his journey to that foreign country. When we talk of Lokmanya Tilak, it is beyond Swarajya is my birthright and I'll have it. That Lokmanya Tilak has also authored a critic on Bhagavad Gita that is titled as Gita Rahasya. Have we ever attempted to go and just read a few pages of Gita Rahasya? These are questions that we need to pose to ourselves. And then talking of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, apart from Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar being the architect of Indian Constitution, if we are to acknowledge his contribution, what are we supposed to do? Is it only by this lip service on the occasion of 14th of April, by me delivering a speech and few of the participants listening very keenly, maybe because of compulsion and maybe out of genuine urge or yearning towards knowledge? Is it that only for this hour of this 60 minutes that we are offering our respect and showing our deepest and profound gratitude to Dr. Ambedkar? The answer would be no. And therefore my request to all of you would be that there are some wonderful speeches delivered by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. Make it a point. All of us need to resolve that we go through those speeches. The first speech is that of 4th November 1948, and that was delivered before the Constituent Assembly. If one is to peruse the preamble to the Constitution of India, it has only 85 words. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure for all its citizens justice, social, economic, and political liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, and it goes on. But as a student of law, we need to show that curiosity, that yearning to understand that what made Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar and his companions in the Constituent Assembly cull down to these 85 words, the whole sum and substance of the Constitution of India. What was the journey of the Constituent Assembly? It was on 9th December 1946 that the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly was held. And thereafter, in 11 sessions, almost 165 days, actual working days, the Constituent Assembly had held its meetings. It took 2 years, 11 months, and 17 days for completing the task of writing the Indian Constitution. The last meeting of the Indian Constituent Assembly was conducted on 24th of January 1950. And therefore, 26th January, we celebrate the Republic Day. The first speech that I am talking about of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar delivered by him before the Constituent Assembly is that of 4th November 1948. The speech consists of 8,917 words, if one is to count the words. And one requires 33 minutes, right, to read it to yourself. Nowadays, because we live this internet generation where YouTube Shorts is the source of entertainment, even if you go through a news item and come across that on the internet on some news web portal, you will get to see that below the title of the news or that article, it is normally quoted by the editor, 18 minutes read or 5 minutes read. What does that mean? That if you sit at that moment and start reading the news item or that article, it will take you 5 minutes or 18 minutes to read. So the first speech of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar that I am talking is of 4th of November 1948. It contains 8,917 words and will require 33 minutes to read it in completion. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar starts the very speech, and mark my words, सगळ्यांना सांगतोय, जे कोणी विद्यार्थी म्हणून पार्टिसिपेट करत असतील, जर आपल्याला भारतीय संविधान समजून घ्यायचं असेल तर डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकरांचं 4 नोव्हेंबर 1948 चं भाषण आपण चुकवता कामा नये. Why do I say this? With profound humility, I say this because of the humility that was exhibited by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. Because the opening words with which Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar started his address to the Constituent Assembly on 4th of November 1948 the words were, and I quote the paragraph, "A student of constitutional law, if a copy of a constitution is placed in his hands, a student of constitutional law, if a copy of constitution is placed in his hands, is sure to ask two questions. Firstly, what is the form of government that is envisaged in the Constitution? What is the form of government that is envisaged in the Constitution? And secondly, what is the form of the Constitution? For these are the two crucial matters which every Constitution has to deal with." See how wonderful and touching this is. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar is addressing to the members of Constituent Assembly, members who were great stalwarts, who were fountainheads of knowledge, who had all the rich information gathered with them from across the globe about law, about constitutions, about various walks of life. And they were there discerning and dissecting every word that is to be incorporated in the Constitution. And when the task of writing down the Constitution begins, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, while presenting the rough draft at the beginning, at the outset of the Constituent Assembly proceedings, what position he introduces himself to be in, he says that what questions are to be put by a student of constitutional law, I put myself those questions and I pose them even to the Constituent Assembly. That what form of government are we offering and what is the form of constitution? माझ्या म्हणण्याचा आशय हा आहे, what I wish to convey to all of you is की बाबासाहेबांपुढे जेव्हा त्यांनी 4 नोव्हेंबर 1948चं भाषण संविधान सभेपुढे केलं, तेव्हा केंद्रस्थानी कोण होता? तेव्हा राजेंद्र प्रसाद नव्हते, तेव्हा पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू नव्हते, तेव्हा संविधान समितीतील इतर महनीय सभासद नव्हते, तर त्यांच्या पुढे कायद्याचा अभ्यास करणारा विद्यार्थी होता. आणि म्हणून बाबासाहेब सुरुवात काय करतात की जेव्हा आपण जी राज्यघटना लिहायला घेतो आहोत तिच्या स्वरूपाबद्दल मी विचार करतो, तेव्हा मी असा विचार करतो आहे की संविधान या विषयाचा, राज्यघटना या विषयाचा अभ्यासक असलेला विद्यार्थी जे 2 प्रश्न विचारेल ते प्रश्न आपण स्वतःला विचारूया. And then he goes on to explain the features of the constitution that they proposed to draw. He had explained the difference between the Indian president and the president in United States of America. He goes on to explain what is the difference between a unitary and a federal constitution. It is interesting for those who are keen to study constitution to know that in United States of America, you will get to see that all the states have their own different constitution. And the constitution for the entire states of America, there is dual citizenship. So if you are living in a certain state called Dallas, you will have a separate citizenship or an Aadhaar card of Dallas, and you may have a different Aadhaar card or a citizenship card of the United States of America. Then he goes on to say that we have borrowed this analogy of this concurrent list, state list and union list from the Australian constitution. Now, निंदकाचे घर असावे शेजारी. These are the words by Sant Tukaram. What does he mean by saying that? He means to say that it is always good to have your critics around you because that will make you improve yourself. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, with all respect, we praise him for his contribution and the unparalleled duty that he had performed towards our nation. We appreciate, we bow down to his contribution. But do you know that there were critics in the Constituent Assembly also who were against certain thoughts or certain concepts that were introduced by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar into the Constitution. And one of the allegations that was being leveled against the drafting committee and the Constituent Assembly by few of the members was that the Constituent Assembly was borrowing certain provisions from the other constitutions of the world. And Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar says, and I'll just cite the Marathi translation because I found this in a certain book. And this is what he has answered in that speech also of 4th November 1948, which is delivered in English. He says, याबद्दल शरम वाटावी असे काहीच नाही. He is talking about borrowing provisions from certain other constitutions of the world. याबाबत मी काडीचाही अपराध भाव बाळगू इच्छित नाही. And he further says that जगामधील घटनांमधील शाश्वत जीवन मूल्य ही चिरंतन आणि त्रिकाला बाधित आहेत. त्यावर कुणा व्यक्तीचे पेटंट किंवा स्वामित्व हक्क नाही. So these are such immortal values that they are universal and no individual or a country can claim ownership over these values. That is what his answer was to the critics. Now there was an occasion just recently, maybe a year ago, when a certain film star had expressed about this idea that India was never united as a nation. And then this other film actress had criticized the film star's view. What were Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's views on this? He has quoted a famous thinker Metcalfe. And Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar quotes Metcalfe talking about the ancient Indian history and goes on to say, and Dr. Ambedkar in his speech has quoted Metcalfe and I am quoting that, I am reproducing that to you. He says, dynasty after dynasty tumbles down. Revolution succeeds to revolution. Hindu, Pathan, Mughal, Maratha, Sikh, English are all masters in turn, but the village communities remain the same. In times of trouble, they arm and fortify themselves. A hostile army passes through the country. The village communities collect their little cattle within their walls and let the enemy pass unprovoked. So, what he wants to say is that the villages used to come together only to fortify themselves for those times of challenge, where some foreign invader used to come and attack, but they remained unprovoked. So, he goes on to then answer the other provisions of the Indian Constitution also. So my advice to you is that please go on and read the first speech that I have talked about is that of 4th November 1948, which contains, as I have said at the outset, 8,917 words and is a 33-minute read speech. The second speech is that of 25th November 1949, and it consists of 5,903 words and it is 18-minute read. So we'll require 18 minutes to read the second speech that is delivered on 25th of November 1949. It is titled as Grammar of Anarchy. Now there was this criticism. Now see, आता आपण अशा टप्प्याकडे येतो आहोत because we all know we celebrate the Law Day on 26th November because the preamble itself speaks that, and therefore on this 26th day of November 1949, we hereby adopt, enact and give ourselves this constitution. So 26th November we have adopted the final constitution in portion, partially and absolutely in its complete form. And therefore this speech delivered by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has a certain significance. It is being delivered a day prior to the date on which we had partially adopted the Constitution of India. So as I said, there were critics around. टीकाकार होतेच. आणि टीकाकारांचं म्हणणं होतं की why has the Constituent Assembly taken so much time to come up with a final draft of the Constitution? The Constituent Assembly is working at a slow pace. And then Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, while dealing with this criticism, shows this humility and modesty to accept it. He goes on to state that for writing of the American Constitution, it had took 4 months. For Canada, 2 months were required to write down the Constitution. For Australia, the period required was 9 months. For South Africa, the period was 1 year. But in Indian Constitution, while the Constituent Assembly or the drafting committee was coming up with the draft, how many corrections were suggested? Can anybody tell? Those were almost 2,473 corrections that were proposed by different members of the Constituent Assembly. And therefore, one of the critics, as I have said, Nimdak, and of course, there was no bitterness while all of these members used to exchange their views on the floor of the Constituent Assembly. And even after we gained independence on the floor of the Parliament of India, there was hardly any amount of bitterness because though there might be ideological differences, but all of these dialogues used to occur in a very healthy environment. So Naziruddin Ahmad was one such critic who had criticized the Constituent Assembly and the role of drafting committee, and he had said in a sarcastic way that the drafting committee is not drafting committee but is drifting committee. Right? So that also has been answered by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, this criticism by Naziruddin Ahmad. Then he goes on to say that he has also acknowledged the contribution by the Indian National Congress Party. The words are very worth a read. I'll just read out that paragraph. He says, the task of drafting committee would have been a very difficult one if this Constituent Assembly has been merely a motley crowd, a tessellated pavement without cement, a black stone here and a white stone there, is which each member or each group was a law unto itself. So this would have been the position like a pavement if you get to see, where the pavement blocks are not pasted in a certain discipline but are just pasted in a crisscross manner. The way it will look shabby, it would have looked so had there been no equal contribution or equal assistance and support by the Indian National Congress Party. And then he goes on to say, and I think with this I come to the conclusion of my address today. We all speak of that, right? Dr. Mahatma Gandhi has said that be the change you want to see. We often get to see this story of a Sadhu Maharaj to whom a lady had come complaining about the behavior of her child, that the child was very much fond of eating jaggery. बच्चे को गुड़ खाना बहुत पसंद था. तो कोई एक स्त्री, एक महिला किसी आध्यात्मिक गुरु के पास जाती है और ये कहती है कि इसकी ये आदत मुझे बदलनी है. तो जो गुरुजी होते हैं वो कहते हैं कि आप 15 दिन बाद आइए, तब मैं आपको इसके बारे में सलाह दूंगा. और 15 दिन बाद जाने के बाद गुरुजी उन्हें कोई सलाह देते हैं, और जब वो सलाह सुनने के बाद महिला ये सवाल करती है गुरुजी से कि यही बात तो आप मुझे 15 दिन पहले भी बता सकते थे. तो गुरुजी ने कहा कि 15 दिन पहले जब आप मुझसे वार्तालाप करने के लिए आई थी, तब मैंने ये सोचा कि मुझे खुद व्यक्तिगत तौर पे गुड़ बहुत पसंद है. तो जब तक मैं अपनी आदत नहीं छोड़ता हूं, तब तक मैं किसी और को सलाह देने के लिए काबिल खुद को नहीं समझ रहा था, इसलिए मैंने आपको 15 दिन बाद आने की राय दी. The point I am trying to drive is that ultimately, if we talk of Constitution of India and we talk of our country and we say that India doesn't have any future, if we come with such negative thoughts around us, because everybody has a right to free speech, everybody has a right to dissent. At that moment, we need to understand what Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar had said. That whether, now people asked him, that whether with this constitution India will become a superpower. That dream we have been cherishing since long. And Babasaheb Ambedkar says that however good a constitution may be, it is sure to turn out bad because those who are called to work it happen to be a bad lot. However bad a constitution may be, it may turn out to be good if those who are called to work it happen to be a good lot. The working of a constitution does not depend wholly upon the nature of the constitution. So ultimately, on this 25th November 1949 speech, Babasaheb Ambedkar is speaking about the responsibility that we have on our own. And mark my words, it is very difficult to very sincerely follow and cherish the expectations that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has from all of us. Because we get perturbed. If a certain thing doesn't occur in our favor, we get disturbed. We feel like the whole system needs to be burned. We feel that the whole government needs to be toppled down. And therefore Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar says that independence is no doubt a matter of joy. स्वातंत्र्य हा ज्याच्याबद्दल आनंद बाळगावा अशी वस्तुस्थिती आहेच आहे. But let us not forget that this independence has thrown on us great responsibilities. By independence, we have lost the excuse of blaming the British for anything going wrong. अब हम किसी और की तरफ उंगली नहीं दिखा सकते अगर कुछ गलत होता है तो. If hereafter things go wrong, we will have nobody to blame except ourselves. There is great danger of things going wrong. This is the alarm bell that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar sounded in 1949. And beyond this, he had also issued 3 warnings. Out of those, one warning is that one must not indulge into worshipping people. व्यक्ति पूजा का बाबा साहब ने विरोध किया था. And second, he says that henceforth we'll have to adopt peaceful and constitutional means for getting our grievances redressed. We cannot just take a stone and throw it on the government officials. And when Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar expects us to adopt constitutional modes is that he says that satyagraha and all is good, but that will give you no solace. You'll have to ultimately adopt constitutional means. And what is constitutional mean? इज दैट आपके घर के सामने अगर कचरा जमता है और उठाने के लिए कोई पालिका की तरफ से नहीं आ रहा है, तो आप अपने कॉर्पोरेटर को गाली देके आपकी जिम्मेदारी खत्म नहीं होने वाली है। आपका दायित्व यह बनता है कि आप अदालत का दरवाजा खटखटाएं, क्योंकि जब डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर लोकशाही मार्ग का अवलंब करने की सलाह हमें देते हैं, हमें बोलते हैं कि लोकशाही का रास्ता हमें अपनाना चाहिए, तो उसका मतलब यह है कि हमें शांति से, संयम से जो रास्ते, जो विकल्प हमें एक डेमोक्रेसी देती है, उन्हें एडॉप्ट करने की आदत खुद को डालनी होगी। टू कंक्लूड, I am reminded of the words of Justice Learned Hand. If one is to peruse the biography of Justice Learned Hand, a judge from United States of America, he couldn't make it to the American Supreme Court, but his speeches and words have become immortal. See how people become immortal not because of the position they have achieved, the post that they reach, but because of the work that they put into. And what Justice Learned Hand says, he says that alas, I believe that we rest too much of our hopes upon the Constitution, upon the law, and upon the courts. काय म्हणतात Justice Learned Hand? Alas, I believe that we rest too much of our hopes upon the Constitution, upon the law, and upon the courts. These are false hopes. Believe me, these are false hopes. For liberty lies in the hearts of men and women. If it stays alive there, there is no constitutional, no law, no court required to protect it. And if it dies there, liberty, then no court, no constitution, and no law can protect it. So आजादी अगर कहीं जलती रहनी है एक मशाल की तरह, तो वो हमारे मन में, हमारे अंतर्मन में, हमारे हृदय में जलती रहनी चाहिए। जब ये आजादी बुझ जाएगी, इस आजादी की मशाल अगर बुझेगी, तो कोई संविधान, कोई अदालत और कोई कानून इसे नहीं बचा पाएगा। With these words, I think I conclude, and it is always a matter of gratitude to be a part of any function that is organized and arranged by VN Patil Law College. For years together, I have had my association with VN Patil Law College. And I'll always be obliged and honored in future if I get an opportunity to join VN Patil Law College for any of your academic endeavors. From the bottom of my heart, I thank Neetal Madam, Vaishali Madam for having me with you. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Maharashtra, and Jai Bhim.
Thank you, sir. That was a very informative session, sir. And I want to tell you, sir, though the movie is blur on YouTube, the incidences narrated by you has shown us the movie of great life of this great person. And really, if when we want to pay homage to Dr. Ambedkar, our homage to him should be to understand him fully, to take forward his work and values that he taught to the generations to come. Thank you, sir. As we are heading towards the conclusion of session, I call on Pathan Kaif to propose the vote of thanks. Pathan Kaif.
Good morning, everyone. Respected chief guest of today's function, Advocate Chaitanya Darukar sir, our principal Dr. Neetal Nanedkar madam, teaching and non-teaching staff of PN Patil Law College, and my dear friends. Today, it's my immense pleasure to propose the vote of thanks. I extend my sincere gratitude towards Advocate Chaitanya Darukar sir, who has given his precious time for today's function. His words of knowledge and wisdom will help our students in developing their intellectual level. I thank our principal madam for arranging this workshop. I also thank all the teaching and non-teaching staff of their support. And The end, I thank everyone on the behalf of the management staff and students of VN Patil Law College. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kef. And here I declare that today's program is over. Thank you.